Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Capitol Rundown, where we bring you politics from both sides of the aisle that matter to you with our insiders. We've got for the Republicans, former House Republican leader Themis Klarides and Democratic strategist Jimmy Tickey. They were up very late with us here on TV for election night, and then I know texting throughout the night because we're going to get to all the big races. So many upsets here in Connecticut, but across the nation, people are calling this a blue wave. Is it a blue wave, Jimmy?
I would say so. You know, Democrats in 2024 did not have a good night, and I will be honest about that. But boy, oh boy, last night Democrats needed a victory, they wanted a victory, and they got a victory. In California, winning with the redistricting battle, fighting back against Donald Trump's efforts in Texas to redistrict out Democrats. California will now redistrict their congressional races and redistrict out Republicans if that's what Texas is going to do. Winning in Virginia, winning in New Jersey, winning in New York City. New York City, not such a surprise, but to see the amount of effort, the energy, the new people that have become a part of the process. And in New Jersey, that was a bit of a tighter race in the last couple of weeks, and we still had a resounding win there. So we are getting reports from all around the country as you begin to see not only the election results, but then you start to see some of the exit polling and how did we do with young men or with women or in suburbs. And it's looking very positive for Democrats. People responded to the harm that this president and the White House have caused with this federal government shutdown, and they voted for Democrats last night.
Themis, from the Republican side, where do you go from here? And was this a vote against Trump?
Well, you know, you have to kind of go back. I think to talk about what happened last night, you have to go back to a year ago. And so a year ago, you had this very strange dynamic where Trump was running, but people couldn't support Biden because they knew he just wasn't, his best self. And then he got out late. And then Kamala Harris got in, and people weren't comfortable with her either. So there are people Republicans that didn't like Trump, but they said, I feel like I don't have a choice here. I have to vote for him because I can't vote for her. And so Republicans thought this is a huge victory, and there were huge victories. And the Democrats, I believe at the time, and I think it's proven, didn't really have a message except don't vote for Trump. And then a year goes by, and what happened in the past year is Donald Trump did what he said he was going to do. People voted for him. But he did what he said he was going to do, and I don't think they like it. And this shutdown, I think, is very significant because this has affected people's SNAP benefits, right? The food stamps benefits. Medicaid is being affected. The budget has affected, cut everything. And so I think it really hurt people. And when you have control of the White House, the House, and the Senate, it's the old adage, be careful what you wish for. It's great to win everything, but then you're going to own everything. And I think that's what happened.
Okay. So we saw this on a macro level, and normally would start with local, which I do want to get to some of the races that you were getting texts about late at night. But even in New York City, it's the race that everyone is talking about with Mamdani winning, who is a self-proclaimed socialist. And some saying, well, this is, the Republicans are going to use him as a boogeyman, and the Democrats have to use his playbook. Is that true?
I think what he did, a part was very effective in what he did with digital outreach, reaching out to new people, recruiting young people to volunteer, to engage young people, to get them to register to vote. I mean, he created a lot of excitement in New York City. He ran against a Cuomo, which is a legendary name in New York City. Interestingly, Andrew Cuomo's father, Mario Cuomo, ran for mayor as well in a Democratic primary against Ed Koch, lost in that Democratic primary, ran as an independent in the general, and got 41% of the vote, which, funny enough, is almost exactly what happened last night with his son, Andrew Cuomo.
It's really a repeat of history.
It truly was a repeat in New York City. So, with Mamdani, he created a movement, and I think what's important is that while some are saying, he is a socialist, that's what New York City voters voted for. In New Jersey, we had a Navy captain in Mikey Sherrill, a member of Congress, a mom. In Virginia, we had Abigail Spanberger, the first woman to be elected governor in Virginia. And so candidates really need to fit their districts and their states. And in many districts last night, moderates won. But in New York City, we saw a huge win in Zohran Mamdani.
And in New York City, and we talked about this a lot last night, I mean, candidate quality matters. And unfortunately, I think that the Cuomo name is tarnished at this point. I mean, I think maybe if he waited a while, he might be able to do something again. But for right now, people, they may have not liked Mamdani, but then they couldn't vote for Cuomo. And so there weren't a lot of great choices. And I found it really interesting that some of the exit polls said, how many Democrats in New York identify as socialist? And it was like 30%. So a very low. And the other interesting thing is, what percentage of people believe that what Mamdani promised was realistic? and it was less than more. So they don't even believe that he could do what he said he's going to do, and they voted for him. And I think part of that is because he got people excited, but there also weren't great choices. I mean, it's candidate quality matters.
People are really sick and tired of the status quo, and so when
he's a disruptor.
Yes, and I mean, some have made the comparison actually to Donald Trump.
Like
what Trump has done on the far right with this MAGA movement, you know, you're seeing Mamdani do. And listen, they'll talk about each other because it's great for both of their bases. It is good for Trump to talk about Mamdani, and Mamdani's his victory speech last night was a lot about Trump. So they can do that, but I think people are looking for authentic candidates that are in it for the right reasons, that are new, that are fresh, that are different, that have fresh ideas, and that's what really wins the day. And last night we saw a lot of wins here in Connecticut and around the country, many of which were very good for Democrats.
But I think an important takeaway also, when you look at Virginia, it's a perfect example. The top of the ticket matters. In a state like Virginia, which is pretty purple, so Republican, there's right now a Republican governor that's outgoing. There have been Republican governors in the past and Democrat governors in the past. So it's a state that will elect Republicans, but you have to be a candidate for that state. And the Republican who was running just didn't seem representative of Virginia. And the sad part of that is she affected the down ballot. The Attorney General's race, which we never hear about an Attorney General's race in the state of Virginia, and we've been hearing about that for months now. The Democrat won and probably would not have won if there was a strong Republican at the top of the ticket.
Okay, let's move to the locals. And there were some surprises. I mean, when we left from our streaming special on WFSB Plus, Bristol was not called yet, and the incumbent mayor was looking like he was doing really well. And then there was a blue wave, and we have a female mayor now as well. So women and blue, it seems like.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there was a lot of disappointing races for the Republican Party in Connecticut, and I think it came directly from the shutdown and what Donald Trump is doing. I mean, Bristol was heartbreaking. Jeff Caggiano has done a great job, but now the new mayor is the old mayor. So, you know,
yeah,
Elaine,
so she's already,
I mean, she had already,
her.
that's who he beat her, now she beat him. And, you know, but of all the races that we've lost, I'm sure Jimmy will be very happy to tell you who those are. Torrington was a huge win. Not only did Molly Spino win, again, you've heard me talk about her before, you know, she's a veteran, she's a young mom, she's been involved in politics, but they had a sweep of the whole city.
For Republicans in Torrington.
In addition to Orange, Connecticut, in addition to, you know, Oxford, Connecticut, in
Orange
addition to...
became red. Torrington became red.
Orange has been red for a while,
yeah.
Although there's actually more Democrats registered there, but they like to elect Republicans. But a lot of other towns, I mean, there were surprises. I mean, Farmington has a Democrat. The chairman of their town council is who runs the town. First time in 70 years. East Granby lost. You know, Stratford, as we talked about.
Well, Stratford was an upset. So, Jimmy,
yeah,
from your
upsetting.
perspective, what were some of the big surprise moments that people are going to be talking about and need to understand this week?
I think the biggest upset was Stratford statewide. I think that many only started paying attention to those final 2 weeks when they saw that Stratford was leading the early vote statewide. I think a lot of people said, what is going on in Stratford? But I know that the Democrats organized really, really hard with really great candidates, and that definitely was the biggest upset. I try not to be very surprised by anything in politics these days, but I have talked to a lot of people in the last 12 hours who were actually surprised by the amount of wins. I mean, we are up to over 25 towns flipped. By flipped, I mean that is a town that was a Republican town that is now a Democratic town. Now, there's only 169 towns in Connecticut, so to flip over 25 towns from Milford to Ansonia to Bristol to Norwich and on and on and
Bethany,
on.
Branford, Norwich,
Stratford,
exactly,
Branford,
yep.
Ellington, New Britain, Ansonia, Bethany, Milford, Westport, East Granby, Norwich, Rocky Hill, small towns, big cities, rural communities, shoreline, central Connecticut. It truly was a wave. It was a significant win for Democratic candidates last night, and even for those towns that don't elect a mayor or first selectman, but that elect a council in Farmington and in Wallingford and in other towns, we're getting reports that Democrats flipped the council, and the leader of that council ends up basically becoming the Republican. So significant wins for Democrats at the local level.
But then you have outliers, right? Things that you just can't explain, like the town of Woodbridge. Well, the Democrat incumbent won, but only by 8 votes, so there'll be a recount. But then the rest of the underticket, you know, didn't do well on the Republican side. So we either saw last night a lot of sweeps, one direction or the other, but that was a split. And I don't think many towns went that way. I mean, they either decided they're going to go with the Republican or they're going to go with the Democrat.
So you've been a leader of the Republican Party before and still obviously are very involved. What would you tell Republicans today after this sweep?
I would tell Republicans we are Connecticut Republicans. we do not operate on the national level. You have to represent your town. You have to know what your town wants, what your town likes, and you have to run as your own person. When you are asked, do you like Trump or do you not like Trump, that is a national issue. That is nothing to do with the town you're running. And, you know, I have to say this has been an issue since he got elected the first time. Every Republican in this state gets asked the same question every day. So do you like Trump? Did you vote for him? Do you denounce him? And, you know, that was the interesting part of this is that was effective for a while, right? He won the first time, and then he lost the second time, and it was effective for Democrats, but it was not effective for them last election. It was very effective this election, and I believe strongly because people were personally affected. SNAP, Medicaid, you know, healthcare premiums, things that are actually affecting them.
Yeah. So well, right now we just showed, you know, really long lines at Bradley International Airport as people are getting ready to travel for Thanksgiving. What is, from the top, we understand the president was weighing in on a shutdown. You guys were all hoping the shutdown would end this week. Update us what we need to understand about what's going on behind the scenes with this government shutdown. I mean, listen, I think the president is now somehow talking about the Republicans in the House and the Senate as if he's not part of them. You know, when he talked about clearly the shutdown has affected the Republicans, so we need to do something about it. Well, he's the president; he can kind of direct them to do something about it and stop hurting people and move this whole thing forward.
Yeah, I mean, Speaker Mike Johnson did not call the House back into session for the last 36 some odd days because the president said don't do it. They had this shutdown. They would not agree with Democrats that we should extend the tax benefits for People's Affordable Care Act, their health plans. People are now getting these letters in the mail. They are seeing that their premiums and what they owe on their health plans are doubling, tripling in some cases right here in Connecticut. Now we have this election. Republicans pretty much lose across the board, and this morning the president was addressing Senate Republicans saying we really need to end this shutdown. So we agree we should end this shutdown. This has caused great harm for people. We shouldn't have to have an election about it, but we did. Voters want someone who's at least going to do no harm. Hopefully you do some good for people, but do no harm. And this shutdown has really caused pain for people, whether it's food, nutrition, airports, Social Security, long lines, long hold times. I mean, this really has an effect. And with each passing week, as federal workers maybe say, do I want to continue in this role? I haven't gotten the last 3 or 4 paychecks. It only can get worse. So we need to end the shutdown.
And extreme actions like shutdowns have consequences, and there are political risks. They could have easily gone the other direction and blamed the Democrats. They blame the Republicans in this situation. And, you know, it's not as black and white as Democrats want to help people's health care, so shame on the Republicans for not agreeing with them. I mean, the Democrats have their own fault in this whole thing, you know, and they're both to blame for what's going on. I mean, they have legitimate issues. The Republicans have legitimate issues. They all need to get together and move this forward so people stop getting hurt.
Real people want people to sit down and do their work and compromise and keep the government open at the very least. So let's talk about some of the referendums and some of the surprise issues. We didn't have all the answers last night, but we were talking about, I don't know if they're in yet. If you know, there's some recounts, there's some referendums. Is Bethany going to get mixed drinks at their restaurants? Do we know anything?
I don't even know the answer to that. I know
we're still waiting for that to come in.
That's big news, and we also don't know in Seymour if they could now be called select persons. Instead of
there were going to be no more select men,
select men or select women. They're select persons, and so I don't know if there's the big decision of selling hard alcohol is going to work it out. But we know in Woodbridge we have a recount. We know that
because it was down to
it's less than 1/2 of 1%, which clearly 8
votes,
is. 8 votes,
about 8 votes. In Shelton, actually, in some aldermanic seats, we have our people that are up or down by less than 5 votes. So again, every vote really does count. What happens is if you are within 1/2 of 1% in the state of Connecticut, it automatically triggers a recount. So in the coming days, attorneys from both parties and both candidates will join. They will oversee this recount operation to see who won. And sometimes, in some cases, that could determine even the leadership of maybe a local board or how a local board swings. And with the referendums, some towns also took a look at towns that hire a town manager. Do they need to live in the town? And that's been just about a conversation that towns are having about getting top talent. Do you necessarily need to have the person who's the town manager live in the very town they're in? And so we don't have all the results on the referendums, but there were some interesting questions, some of which came from citizens as they could petition their way onto the ballot to ask these voters these sorts of questions.
Was that Manchester?
I think it was
I think Manchester had a question
if
the town manager needs to live in town or not. And I know Glastonbury asked the question, should we be able to have turf anymore in the town?
Also,
so a lot going on. Senior centers being funded. But
So, and we're going to have, you know, as we break this all down, our reporters are out at those polling stations and different places all throughout. So we'll have the latest coming up on Eyewitnesses at 4, and even as these recounts go on. Bottom line, this was, when people think local elections are a snoozer, I mean, we had I know New York had record turnout. What are you hearing about our turnout? And clearly you're showing with these slim margins, every vote matters. And these are things that affect people's daily lives.
Right. I would say at some of the hotter races yesterday, we saw turnout be higher than usual, and that is a good thing. But it is still true that writ large, statewide, local turnout in a local race is still not where it should be.
Yeah.
and it's because people don't look at it as important as it is.
Yeah, or it's, you know, they're hearing about it, I mean, not hearing it all the time. God bless you,
Right.
Themis. We made you talk all the time last night.
We've done a lot. We've been doing a lot of talking.
All right, you know, where I'll leave it here is the crystal ball question. You did say last night that you think we'll hear something about Governor Ned Lamont's actual intentions this week.
Next week we
I think next week. I think the dust will settle from the municipal
Our
races.
crystal ball says next week.
Next week.
Next week, you
The
think he'll
Valley,
announce
the
he's
Valley
running?
team's crystal ball says next week.
Okay. Any other crystal ball things you want to put out to the public?
The next 12 months is a lifetime in politics. Things will go up and down in many different ways.
Yeah, this is just a moment, and it really matters what happens in the
People
next
want
year.
government to
It's
work.
a data point,
People want
for
government to
sure.
work. Republicans a year ago won the White House, the House, and the Senate. They literally shut down government. People want government to work. Democrats had a great night last night, but we need to keep putting each good day in front of the next as we march on to 2026, which will decide the congressional makeup. And if Democrats can take back the House, that will at least be a check on the president.
Okay. Thank you to our insiders. I see Jimmy's big smile. A lot of Democrats smiling today, but like you said, it's a whole year, so we're going to see what happens. Thank you to both of you. You can always watch the Capitol Rundown streaming on WFSB Plus, also on WFSB.com. Click on local news, and it's on our YouTube station as well. We will see you coming up for Eyewitness News at 4 with the very latest on all of your local elections.